I knew there was something slightly awry. Welcome everyone to our first cabinet meeting of 2021. As usual, these meetings are being live streamed, and I welcome anyone watching at home. We've already read out the meeting protocols internally, but obviously the same respectful approach and tone is taken to online meetings as they would be in person, but I won't be reading those out any further. In terms of just a very brief update, clearly it's been an incredibly busy start to the year for Hackney's public services and our communities. And I think all of us again would echo the tributes we've made before, not only to Hackney Council staff, but also our local NHS that is doing so much to keep our residents safe, and also those that are working to ensure that we have the very best testing provision in the borough and are rolling out the vaccine centres in Hackney over recent weeks, and another one opened today at John Scott Health Centre. And I know I've seen some images of people being vaccinated there with the help of the army, which is great. Clearly, there has been some improvement across London in coronavirus cases and positivity, and we obviously welcome that. I think it shows to anyone watching that lockdown, for all of its economic, social impacts, does actually work. And in only recent weeks, prior to lockdown, did we see some of the highest numbers of cases that we've seen in Hackney during the pandemic. And in some wards, obviously, numbers are still fluctuating and rising. And I just say to anyone watching, and obviously to all of my colleagues, that we still have to remain vigilant, and this period of improvement in the statistics can easily go back in the other direction, as we've seen before. And I also said last week, unfortunately and very sadly, we had the largest number of confirmed deaths as a result of coronavirus since the April peak, and we had 31 registered deaths in Hackney last week. So that means that we have a sad list of people that we lost at the start of the year. And I would like to highlight, I know, two significant imams, Mr. Mufti Fari Baltan and Mohammed Sadat, who helped, in the former case, found the Azizi Mosque in Stoke Newington, and in the latter case was the chair of the Medina Mosque, and they were hugely valued members of the Muslim community, and also involved in the Wal Fund, which, as any of us would know, during Ramadan contributes so much to the community giving in the borough. And I know we're both committed as well to the work with the Winton Ice Shelter around the support for homeless residents in the borough. Separate to that, and as far as I know, I don't know if Alice Burke lost her life due to COVID, but I know Alice Burke was a huge figure in the borough as a significant community champion on Nightingale Estate, the former vice chair of Hackney Homes Board, a really notable Pride of Britain award winner, and somebody that throughout the time that I've known her, and obviously far earlier than my involvement in the council, did so much for Hackney's diverse communities and standing up for them at a time when often public services had failed them on her estate. I wanted to also pay tribute to Simin Azimi from the Refugee Women's Association. Simin worked very closely with HCVS, and very sadly over the Christmas period lost her life to cancer, but she was an enormous figure in making sure that HCVS and all of the public services in Hackney remembered the challenges of our refugee and migrant women. And I know that her loss to that community and her champion of equalities and women's rights was really critically important. It would be remiss of me to not contrast, obviously, these huge contributions from people that we've lost with some of the more challenging images that have been shown around the world of Hackney over the last couple of days, and to say how disappointing, despicable the actions of a selfish minority have been, organising weddings, organising raves, and then putting not only members of their different communities and the attendees of those events at risk from coronavirus, but obviously the emergency services that have to respond to such incidents. And I think I'm really pleased to praise the work of the police around both events. And I know that the work that they did with our enforcement team only last weekend, and that work continues to ensure that where people do break the COVID rules, that enforcement does follow. And I know that many residents have been in touch with me to say that they really thank the work that has happened on that front over the last couple of weeks. And I think the contrast is that it really undermines all of that work that I talked about at the start of the meeting, in terms of the contribution to the local NHS locally. And I think we all know the challenges that lockdown present for every one of us in our own individual circumstances, but that doesn't excuse the organised events that we saw. It wasn't just a minor breach. It wasn't somebody not understanding the rules. It was a concerted effort. And in the case of the unlicensed music event, breaking into an arch that didn't belong to them to organise an event, that then also put people at risk of fire by the way that they barricaded the doors and didn't allow entry or exit. And so, again, it's deeply disturbing images. So thank you everyone for attending. That's enough of my opener. I haven't had any apologies for absence, nor have I had any urgent items of business. Are there any additional declarations of interest from colleagues this evening? Seeing nobody putting up their hand.
No declaration of interest, but I think an apology for Councillor Mwema.
Okay, let's note that apology. Thank you. I haven't had notice of intention to conduct any of the business in private, and I also haven't had any notifications of deputations, questions or petitions to this cabinet meeting. So item 6 is the unrestricted minutes of the previous cabinet meetings on the 30th and 14th of December. Are we happy to agree those minutes?
Agreed.
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 Chair, just to say that I've raised this earlier on, that my attendance wasn't recorded for that meeting. Thank you.
Okay, we'll get that corrected. Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald Thomas. I'm sorry for that error. Item 7 is the unrestricted minutes of the previous meetings of Cabinet Procurement Committee held on the 9th of November and the 7th of December. Would you like to add anything to the minutes, or Deputy Mayor Ennison?
Just as set out.
Are we happy to agree them?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Agreed. Agreed.
Thank you. So item 8 is the last but one, overall financial position statement, update on property disposals and acquisitions report from Deputy Mayor Ennison.
Thank you, Mayor Glanville. You'll be delighted to know you've got 3 reports from me this evening, 4 if we included the CPC minutes, but I'll try and be brief. So overall financial position, which everyone's very familiar with the report. Reports our current in-year financial position. So we're currently looking at roughly a 3 million overspend at the end of the year. If you go through the report, we have broken down what can be traced to coronavirus, what are pre-existing budget pressures. I'm very keen to stress in the report that despite much government rhetoric, austerity very much is business as usual in how they finance and continue to fund local government. We're obviously starting to look at, or well beyond starting, we're bringing the budget to February's Cabinet and Council, we're bringing the final details for the coming year. And we, even in a time of a global pandemic, are expected to make over £10 million worth of savings. And I think it's worth highlighting the difference that central government's very quick to criticise the behaviour of local authorities, very quick to criticise our spending decisions. We cannot borrow to spend in the same way that central government can, and indeed, if they had to adhere to the same strict criteria we do around budgets, they would have received their Section 114 long before now. So we are having to look at how we make that 10 million worth of savings, or over 10 million for the coming year. What we've put in the paper tonight is we've just set out what we're describing as corporate savings, and those are cross-cutting savings we're going to deliver across the council. I won't go to detail because it is there in the paper. As ever, please do come back if you have any questions on specifics. That takes us 8 million towards the total that we're seeking. So 8 million towards the total that we're seeking to find. That's set out in paragraph, I believe it's 2.17 onwards. for those who want to go and check the details. And yeah, we'll be bringing details of remainder savings, particularly looking at directorate level savings, to February Cabinet and Council, and setting out how we will be delivering a balanced budget here in Hackney for the coming year, and also how we'll continue to invest in those residents that need us most, particularly at this time of coronavirus, and as we feel the very real impact of the pandemic, both in human terms and in the economic fallout as well that we're witnessing.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Renison. And I think we all thank you and the finance team for these really detailed updates, but also that work that's gone into the other reports and the build up to the budget. Did anyone have any other comments or questions for the report? On the report, are we happy to agree? Deputy Mayor Bramble.
Thank you, Mayor Glanville. Just to thank Deputy Mayor Renison and the team, as you have already done, and the staff that are working really, really hard in the context and the challenges that we face as a council. I'm really proud of the seek to be innovative and creative to meet the needs of residents as the need rises, Mayor Glanville, and government seek to take money away from local government.
Thank you. We're happy to agree the report.
Agreed.
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 Thank you.
Agreed.
So item 9 is our January capital update report. I just wanted to highlight from my introduction, it continues to obviously represent significant investment in our in-borough SEND provision. And that's something we've obviously had a deep commitment to, and this continues that work. We've also got a continuation of the investment in our existing schools and the facades programme highlighted here. More broadly, you'll be aware, obviously, of our ambition around being a greener and safer borough when it comes to our streets. So there's continuing investment in our tree planting programme, and any doubts that may have been out there that we would back away from those commitments with the loss of former Councillor Burke over the Christmas period can be clearly shown that the ambition is still there and the investment is there, both in our tree planting programme and also the 21st Century Street work in Kelveston Crescent. And I was very pleased to celebrate on Friday the milestone of our 1,000th street tree of this administration, which means that every single street tree planted after that date exceeds our manifesto commitment made in 2018. I know few boroughs that have achieved that and have that level of ambition. That also means that we're investing in our staff, and there's investment in our parks depots, and obviously that integration work that's happening with our Parks and Green Spaces team, and further investment in other manifesto commitments, such as our energy consumption reduction and LED bulbs rollout, which is both on our streets and our estates. And finally, and given the weather we've had recently, I welcome the investment in our highways and the work to mitigate flood risk. I'm happy to commend the report to Cabinet. Does anyone want to debate or discuss the report? Councillor Woodley.
Congratulations on the 1,000th tree. I have to say it's really lovely to sort of welcome some of the work here in terms of the increasing our tree canopy and the work in the parks, but especially warm thanks really for supporting the work on SEND provision. And it just goes to show how much we can do with a special provision capital fund. We've managed, despite COVID, to progress with the opening of the ALP in Queensbridge, again with Gainsborough, and this work is kind of storming ahead now with the Garden School, and I'm so pleased. And if we could only have more capital funding like this, we could do so much more. So yeah, really warmly welcome this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Woodley. Deputy Mayor Bramble, and then I'll go to Councillor Fajana Thomas.
Just to say, Mayor, that when I'm trying to take my own advice, when I'm encouraging people to think about their health and well-being, I spend a lot more time outside just getting fresh air and in our parks. And I suppose I've had a newfound appreciation for our green spaces. So thank you and all the team for all the work that's going on into preserving and adding to that green environment. Really proud as in a city borough that we can be so green.
Thank you. I think that's a sentiment that we would all have, especially when I look at Councillor Williams's photos. Councillor Fajana Thomas.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to echo what my colleagues said earlier on, just to say congratulations. Reading it is I'm proud as a councillor, a resident, to see what we are doing when it comes to the public realm, keeping residents safe in terms of investment in road safety project. So just to say congratulations on this work.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's really important to remember. It's often the same teams that are dealing with some of the more challenging end of our work on low traffic neighbourhoods and other things, and they're an incredible team that are doing all of this other work as well. So I think it is obviously absolutely worth remembering that. There is also, I should have said earlier, a piece of work under Appendix 1, which looks at the reprofiling of our capital programme. And that's obviously one of the key building blocks going into the next financial year. And I'll be making more fulsome thanks to the work of Councillor Burke at full council on Wednesday, but obviously wish him well in spending more time with his family, and obviously with a fair wind, he hopes to spend more time with the people of Liverpool as their mayoral candidate, and I'm sure he has our good wishes for both as Cabinet. Does anyone else have any comments, though, on the report? We're happy to agree it.
Yes.
Agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Renison, item 10, the council tax base and local business rate income.
Number 2 for me. So also, I think we're meant to clarify why this report was late being tabled. And likewise, I don't think we said with the OFP why it was late being tabled. So apologies for that. With the OFP, it was a wait and final or seeking confirmation of numbers that we needed to run our forecast. And with the tax-based report, I hope you can appreciate how challenging it's been to do the forecasting at current times of a rapidly changing external environment, and also waiting literally up until today, in fact, for some of the final confirmations around what's happening to business rates pooling and other things in the coming years. So apologies for the late tabling, but it was due to rapidly changing external circumstances. So the tax-based report, this sets out a forecast effectively for how much council tax and how much in business rates we expect to see for the coming year. If you'll go back 12 months, which seems far longer than a year at this point, you'll remember we were in the optimistic position of increasing our forecast for our council tax collection rate to 95.5% because we've been performing well as a borough in recent years. Understandably, we're forecasting a much lower rate for the coming year. So at this point, we're forecasting a 94% council tax collection rate for the coming year. That reflects it's a combination of factors, and the team has worked very hard to try and build as reliable an estimate as possible, but effectively is taking what we know to be our normal collection levels, it's taking what we expect to collect within this financial year, and it's trying to make a call of when we might get back to some sort of normality over the coming year. But obviously that has to take in a huge number of variables, but it's important that we're as accurate as possible in the forecast. If we're too far off in either direction, we end up making budget savings in this financial year that we didn't need to make, or we end up carrying the cost of not having hit our collection rate into future financial years. So it is an important forecast, and I want to thank officers for the huge amount of work that's gone into it. It is hard to get your head around how complex it has been this particular year, and the fact that we continue to face moving parts, not least just about as this calculation is ready, we went into the latest lockdown, calculating the sort of financial impact of that and what that would mean for the next financial year as well. We've also got the forecast total sums of business rates collection within there. This is a requirement. We have to provide this information. It's a government requirement. We publish this information at this time of year. I know Councillor Nixon would want me to stress and may want to come in that we will continue to advocate for support for businesses we know are struggling in the borough. We know the economic impact of coronavirus will continue to be felt, and we will do everything we can to support businesses operating in Hackney. But I had been going to speak very briefly on this because it comes to council as well. So apologies for all those. I'll get to hear this again later in the week, but as set out.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Renison. Does anyone want to debate or discuss the report? We're happy to agree it.
Agreed.
Great.
Thank you very much. I look forward to hearing it again on Wednesday.
I'll try and make it a bit different. I'll think how I can change it for Wednesday's presentation.
We look forward to that, Deputy Mayor Ennison. Equally important is obviously item 11, which is the housing revenue account budget, which also includes the rent and service charge setting. And I'd like to obviously ask Councillor Mackenzie to introduce the report, but just thank everyone in Housing Services and Finance who have been working on this over a number of months. It's incredibly important. And to also highlight the really clear service information and direction of travel that I think was in the last issue of Our Homes, which obviously provides a really critical opportunity for the service to talk to our tenants and leaseholders. Councillor Mackenzie.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Glanville. In a way of context, can I just say, since the government's introduction of the compulsory rent reductions in 2016, there's been a net loss of £55 million of income from the housing revenue account. That amounts to £644 million loss of income over the 30-year HRA business plan. We now face the additional financial challenges brought about by COVID-19 pandemic, including the massive increase in rent arrears. And our challenges have been further compounded by the criminal cyber attack. All of this without receiving a penny of financial support from central government. Mayor Glanville, this report summarises the savings required to set out our balanced HRA budget for 21-22, including the rent policy to be applied from April the 1st. It also sets out proposals of service charges and other fees and charges. Overall, there is a need to save an additional £3.5 million from the 21-22 budget. I'm pleased to say that we again have managed to identify savings without having to make any cuts in housing services. This year's proposed rent increases of 1.5%, which equate to an average of £1.52 per property. This is based on the government's revised rent policy to increase social rents by CPI plus 1% each year. This increase, together with other proposals set out in the paper, will allow us to refurbish and maintain an ageing and diverse housing stock, to grow and improve our direct labour organisation, to protect services to our most vulnerable residents, to address the climate emergency by funding programmes that will help to reduce carbon emissions to our stock, and most importantly of all, to keep our residents safe as we continue to implement and improve safety measures after the Grenfell Tower tragedy. Finally, I would like to again thank Simon Theobald and Deirdre Worrell from our Housing Finance team for putting these savings together. Mayor Glanville, I commend this HR report to Cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mackenzie. Does anyone want to debate or discuss the report? I think that's a testament of the hard work that's gone into it over a number of months. So thank you again, Councillor Mackenzie. Can we agree it?
Agreed.
Agreed. Excellent. Thank you. And the final report from Deputy Mayor Ennison, I will call her to introduce in a second. I think it just goes to show, though, the incredible work that all of our teams do to find new and innovative solutions with a finite budget to provide additional affordable housing in the borough. And because there's probably no other opportunity for me to just thank the housing supply team for their excellent results at planning last week with the car parks to housing project in Hoxton West. But I think it just shows we build, we buy, we invest. And I'll hand over in that spirit to the Cabinet Member for Deputy Mayor Ennison.
Thank you, Mayor Glanville. So this is the third and last report from me. So this is setting out plans to buy back 25 former council properties in the borough. So hopefully this is good news. It's nice to be able to share it with colleagues. I'm delighted to bring these properties back in-house. It's heart-wrenching at a time of such great housing need to see so many properties lost each year to right to buy. And we always ask that registered providers considering selling stock come to us first I'm delighted to have this opportunity to buy these properties. I think, sadly, I do have to flag, just to bring the upbeat note down slightly, that we still face the same challenging financing model for buying these properties back as we do when we build our own. So we would dearly love to buy back every available former council home in the borough at some point, but we have to finance them in exactly the same way as we do our housing supply programme. So as ever, we are limited by the financial restraints the government places on us in terms of how we fund social housing. But in the meantime, delighted to bring forward this report and set out its recommendations to buy back these 25 properties.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Ennison. Are we happy to, do we want to debate or discuss? We're happy to agree the report.
I just want to say I love the we build, we buy, we invest. I think that that is a great strapline for the work that we are doing in Hackney to provide housing across the borough and across the needs of our residents. And I particularly welcome the work that's been done, of course, in Hoxton West.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. We could all declare our personal connections to Hoxton West, but none of them are prejudicial in the context of this. But I think it's a long held wish to obviously see more genuinely affordable housing there, but also this work that officers have been doing in painstaking negotiations with local space around these properties across the borough. And I made the phrase up on the night, Councillor Williams, so maybe I'll just have to remember that as well. Are we happy to agree the report?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. There are, under item 13, no appointments to outside bodies. That's obviously likely to be updated next month with some of the cabinet changes. I haven't been notified of any unrestricted business that I might consider urgent. I do just want to draw attention to the dates of future meetings, which is set out in the report, the 22nd of February, the 22nd of March, and 26th of April. Who knows how those later meetings will actually be held? And I really welcome the letter that Deputy Mayor Bramble has written to government asking for us to have the right to extend these virtual meetings, given the equalities, never mind COVID impacts of not doing so. So we hope we get a response to that, and thank officers for their support on that. We do just have two items of exempt business, so I'm going to ask for the feed to be turned off and the exclusion of press and public. Item 17.